I just wish I could hear your voice. I wish I could set a ringtone that would be just God's ringtone. Hi, all. It's Doug Yglesias, the deacon candidate, and I just had God putting this on my heart recently and wanted to share it with you. The other day I was messing with my wife's cell phone and I started to change the ringtones. And if you've ever gotten to do that, it's a lot of fun. I set specific ringtones for when I call or when I text. She gets these different notes. Well, sure enough, I went to bed that night and I was praying and I said, God, I just wish I could hear your voice. I wish I could set a ringtone that would be just God's ringtone. So how do we hear God's voice in this crazy world? Well, the first thing we need to do is realize that it's not going to come from some booming voice. There's a great story in 1 Kings where Elijah goes and he's running into a cave to hide because basically all the prophets are getting killed. And he goes to God searching for his voice. And God says, I'll come. And there's this huge earthquake. And the next thing that happens is this huge wind that tears the mountain apart. And then there's a huge fire. And they say that God's voice was not in the earthquake. His voice was not in the fire. But at the end of it all was this small whisper. And there was God's voice. So I believe that God is trying to talk to us all the time. In fact, it's almost like if you got a new car. I don't know if this ever happened to you. And you're like, wow, I'm driving this new whatever, XYZ. And as I'm driving down the street, I notice, oh wow, there's another one. And there's another one. And next thing you know, you're amazed that there's so many people driving the same car that you never saw before. Well, I think God's voice is like that. His voice is everywhere. How do we tune our ear like a musician to hear that voice? Well, if we don't attempt to hear his voice, if we don't put ourselves in position to hear his voice, we'll never hear it, right? Or if we only give him 3 seconds a day, it's not going to happen. So thinking in a relationship, it's built on communication, and that communication takes time. You have to spend time with the other person to understand everything that they want to tell you. How do we do that in our faith? Well, thank God we're Catholics. And Catholics are blessed with incredible opportunities to draw close to the Lord and to get to know him. The first and foremost is the sacraments. We got to get involved in the sacraments. Those sacraments, especially confession, the Eucharist, those give us graces that help us be strengthened in our faith and hear God. The second is prayer. We got to take time to pray. And whether it's in the morning or the evening or both, maybe in the middle of the day, giving God that time and not just talking, but listening. And a great place to do that is in adoration. Wednesday nights in the evening, we have adoration where you can go and just sit before the Lord. You look at him, he looks at you, he'll speak to you. Also, the more we know about someone, the more we can understand them. And so I highly encourage you as we start ramping back up, get involved with That Man Is You, with the men's ministry, with Walking with Purpose. There is so much that helps us understand the Lord, but not just from a book or from a program, but in that dialogue with our brothers that we're walking along the road with, or our sisters, right? We learn from each other. And so get involved however you can in the parish. If you've never been involved before, now's the time. As we build back up, we need you to be part of the parish and help us along the road get to know the Lord and be able to hear his voice. If we give somebody the opportunity to listen, to speak to us, if we learn about that person and we work with others, then we're that musician. We're tuning our ear to that ringtone of God calling. I pray you hear his voice today. God bless you.